Hello, my friends. We are picking up with Matthew chapter 27. And if you remember, in 26, Jesus had already been um, arrested, and Peter had denied Christ 3 times. I just think that would have been absolutely devastating for the friend whom you love, one, to tell you that you would not be faithful, you would not be loyal to that friend, and then to be caught in the act of not being faithful to that friend. So he literally denied, he was following Jesus to see how things were going, and he denied him 3 times. But Jesus, he used that. He knew it was going to happen. Apparently, Satan had approached the Lord to sift Peter like wheat, to sift him. And Jesus prayed for him that after he was sifted, that his faith would remain. I just find that very interesting. It seems very strategic to me, and I can't quite put my finger on why, but it just does. Certainly, Jesus didn't want Peter to deny him. But he knew it would happen. Let's find out what chapter 27 holds for us. Now when morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus to put him to death. And they bound him and led him away and delivered him to Pilate the governor. Then when Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that he had been condemned, saw that Jesus had been condemned, he felt remorse. It's the first time. And returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. But they said, what is that to us? See to that yourself. And he threw the pieces of silver into the temple sanctuary and departed. And he went away and hanged himself. The chief priests took the pieces of silver and said, it is not lawful to put them into the temple treasury, since it is the price of blood. So they knew what they had done with that money. They were even acknowledging it to themselves. And I guess they felt a little bit that they needed to be right before God, and so they wouldn't put it into the temple treasury. This makes no sense to me, because here they are killing the Son of God, and yet they are saying that this is the price of blood. All right, verse 7. And they conferred together, and with the money bought the potter's field as a burial place for strangers. For this reason, that field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then that which was spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one whose price had been set by the sons of Israel, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord directed me. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, so this is prophesied in the book of Zechariah, and there's a minimum of 400 years between the last book written in the Old Testament and the book of Matthew. Verse 11. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor questioned him, saying, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus said to him, it is as you say. So when his very essence is questioned, he answers that directly. It is as you say. And again, he just doesn't say yes. He's very strategic in his answer. He is telling them that they said it. Those words came out of their mouth, and they are now accountable for those words coming out of their own mouth. It is as you say. And while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer. Okay, so accused for this and that, he did not defend himself. But when his essence is questioned, "Are you the king of the Jews?" he answers. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?" And he did not answer him with regard to even a single charge. So the governor was quite amazed. Now at the feast, the governor was accustomed to release for the people any one prisoner whom they wanted. And, at that time, they were holding a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when the people gathered together, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you? Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Christ?" Now, Pilate wasn't saying, like, he's my Christ. He's kind of mocking them. He had heard the word on the streets that some people were saying that he was the prophesied one, the coming Messiah, the one who was referred to in the Jewish Holy Scriptures. For he knew that because of envy, they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent him a message saying, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for last night I suffered greatly in a dream because of him." So now even Pilate is being held accountable for his actions, and his wife called him out as a righteous man. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to put Jesus to death. But the governor said to them, which of the two do you want me to release to you?" And they said, "Barabbas." So they wanted the horrible person who had already done detrimental things to the community to be released and free, no longer having to receive punishment, i.e. crucifixion, and Jesus was to go in his place. I hope that's not lost on you, that we, like Barabbas, were set free because Jesus took our place. Pilate said to them, "Then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ?" And he's reminding them of what he's heard on the street. And I think he's kind of mocking them. Look, hey, they say he's the Christ, but he's actually saying truth. And in so doing, he is proclaiming truth, and these people will be held accountable for their actions. They all said, "Crucify him." And he said, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they kept shouting all the more, saying, "Crucify him." When Pilate saw that he was accomplishing nothing, but rather that a riot was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to that yourselves." So he was taking into account the warning of his wife, and that is, have nothing to do with this righteous man. And he was hoping they would say, "Well, we changed our mind. Let Jesus go," and then he would be off the hook. So he's not abiding by his wife's words. No comment there. And he tries to cover his tracks by symbolically washing his hands and saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to that yourselves." And all the people said, "His blood shall be on us and our children." The horrible, horrible things people say, thinking that their words do not matter. Friends, even today, our words matter. Our words matter. Verse 26, then he released Barabbas for them, but after having Jesus scourged, he handed him over to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole Roman cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And after twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and a reed in his right hand. And they knelt down before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews." They spat on him and took the reed and began to beat him on the head. After they had mocked him, they took the scarlet robe off him and put his own garments back on him and led him away to crucify him. I think it's really interesting that these men, in their mockery, were actually performing what they should have done in truth, and that is to bow before him. Verse 32. Oh, I will pick that up later. Verse 32. As they were coming out, they found a man of Cyrene named Simon, whom they pressed into service to bear his cross. All right, not too much of a mess. Okay, verse 33. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they gave him wine to drink mixed with gall, and after tasting it, he was unwilling to drink. And when they had crucified him, they divided up his garments among themselves by casting lots. Lots are like what I think of lots as, and I hope this is right, that like pieces of paper, several pieces of paper, and one of them is short, and they line them up so they're all even, and then they all pick a piece of paper, and one of them is short, and that's it. That's the one. I think that's lots. I could be wrong since they were casting lots. All right. And that, friends, was fulfilling scripture, I want to say in Psalm 22:18, just because that's the Bible reference here. So back, 1,000 years, 500 to 1,000 years, that was even prophesied, that his clothes would be divided between people, and they would cast lots for them. Verse 36, and sitting down, they began to keep watch over him there. Isn't that weird? And sitting down. Because every word counts in the Bible, I'm just wondering why they included that. And above his head, they put up the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Mockery again. Mockery. At that time, 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. You know what? That sign didn't say he claimed to be the King of the Jews. It just said, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." So once again, his title and who he is and why he's there is being proclaimed for all to see. They meant it in mockery, but they were proclaiming truth. Verse 38, at that time, 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those passing by were hurling abuse at him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who are going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself." Remember, Jesus never said he was going to destroy the temple. He just said he could rebuild it in 3 days. "If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him and saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe in him. Yet all those other times when he would heal people by spitting on dirt and then rubbing the mud in somebody's eyes, or just speaking to someone and saying, be healed, or touching their eyes, or raising a man or a child from death. These were not good enough for them. So now they say, come down off the cross and we'll believe you. The fact is, he did come off the cross, didn't he? 3 days later, when he rose again, did all these people say, whoa, I'm sorry, my bad. We got it wrong. Please forgive us. We will worship you now. They didn't do that. So they were calling out their own sin. It's amazing. Everything they like accuse themselves with their own words. Verse 41, in the same way the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him and saying, he saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe in him. And now it's a quotation from Psalm 22:8. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now. If he delights in him, for he said, I am the Son of God. So they are acknowledging that Jesus declared he was the Son of God. They are indicting themselves. Verse 44, the robbers who had been crucified with him were also insulting him with the same words. Now from the 6th hour, darkness fell upon the land until the 9th hour. So the 6th hour would be noon. The 9th hour would be about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. About the 9th hour, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani? That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? Let me take a side note out. So, Jesus took on the sin of the world. That was his whole reason for living a perfect life, so that he would be without fault living on the earth here. That he would be God in the form of man to pay the price that man is not capable of paying without dying. And by that I mean eternal death. So Jesus took on our rightful death. He took on our sin, like it was put on him. You know how you feel bad when you've done something wrong? You've hurt somebody's feelings, or even if nobody knows, but your conscience is speaking against you, saying you shouldn't have done that. So Jesus took that on for every person who ever lived in order to pay the price of death. He did not deserve death. We did do, yet he took that on himself. At that moment, God could not look at him. God and Jesus were separated for a flash moment, because God is holy. Jesus was taking on the sin of mankind. So, and some of those who were standing there, verse 47, some of those who were standing there, when they heard it, began saying, this man is calling for Elijah. Immediately one of them ran, and taking a sponge, he filled it with sour wine and put it in a reed and gave him a drink. Why would anybody do that? But the rest of them said, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him. So again, mockery and doubt. And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the veil of the temple was torn. Okay, I don't think it says it here. Okay, in the other books like Mark, Luke, John, in either one or all of those books, his words of it is done, Jesus cried out, it is done, meaning he paid the price. That it is done is it's a business transaction term saying the payment is paid in full. The payment is paid in full. That spiritual transaction that had to happen in order for us to be reconciled to God, a payment had to be made with life. And so he gave up his life so that we might live. He also conquered death to show that he had done the job, and to show that he is God, and to show that sin is conquered once and for all. And we, in our life, obviously there's sin all around us, right? We have the opportunity to abide in Jesus and not partake in the sin. More on that maybe another time. I'm going to stick to this. Okay, where were we? Verse 50, and Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And the earth shook and the rocks were split. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is so exciting. In the temple area where the Jews worshipped, there were 3 sections. There were probably 4 maybe. But the innermost section was called the Holy of Holies. And the high priest was allowed to go in there 1 time a year. And there was a veil, a curtain separating the Holy of Holies from the next room out. That curtain, which was very thick, split from top to bottom. Top to bottom. If it was man, he'd do it from bottom to top. It split from top to bottom. God showing that now man is no longer separated from God. That's a huge wow. The earth shook. The rocks were split. Tombs were opened. And many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now, the centurion and those who were with him keeping guard over Jesus, when they saw the earthquake and the things that were happening, became very frightened and said, truly, this was the Son of God. Verse 55, many women were looking on from a distance who had followed Jesus from Galilee while ministering to him. Among them was Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Joseph and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who himself had also become a disciple of Jesus. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him, and Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out in the rock, and he rolled a large stone against the entrance of the tomb and went away. And Mary Magdalene was there, and the other Mary, sitting opposite the grave. Now on the next day, the day after the preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered together with Pilate and said, Sir, we remember that when he was still alive, that deceiver said, after 3 days, I am to rise again. Wow, they're quoting him now. And they know the prophecy. Therefore, give orders for the grave to be made secure until the third day. Otherwise, his disciples may come and steal him away and say to the people, he has risen from the dead. And the last deception will be worse than the first. Pilate said to them, you have a guard. Go, make it as secure as you know how. And they went and made the grave secure, and along with the guard, they set a seal on the stone. And that's the end of chapter 27. So, they suspected, how do I say? I don't even know if they believed it or not. It had never happened before where someone just came back to life 3 days later. It seems that they knew they were dealing with someone very strong. And fearful that his disciples would make up a story, they set a seal and a heavy guard over his grave. All right, friends, this was a long one today. I wish you well. I love you. And I need to say that the scripture quotations are from the NASB, the New American Standard Bible, copyright by the Lockman Foundation at www.lockman.org. And we have just one chapter left. So, I love you.